Hey everybody, welcome back to No More, No Less. I'm Michael Chikeen, and here in the virtual studio, I have with me Julie Hall. Julie is a graduate of New York University, Rutgers Business School, and Seattle Pacific University's graduate family therapy program. She's licensed as a marriage and family therapist both in Connecticut and New York, and works with students, couples, and families around addressing issues like anxiety, depression, disordered eating, and trauma. Julie is trained in the practice of mindfulness as well as restorative therapy, emotionally focused therapy, CBT, and dialectic behavioral therapy, all of which are tools she uses in her work with families, couples, and individuals. So, without further delay, Julie Hall, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be
I
here.
guess I'd like to start with making sure that I understand all of these different types of therapies. It seems like every day there's another one. So maybe we can start with restoration and emotionally focused, and then move on to like the all time classic Coke version of therapy, which is kind of CBT.
Sure. Yeah, there are so many different kind of modalities of therapy, and I think they all really have benefit. At a high level, I would say restorative therapy. I think a quick way to describe restorative therapy is it helps us recognize when we're in sort of different cycles of our emotional experience, where there are times we're in what's called a pain cycle, and then there are times we are in a peace cycle. And a pain cycle is one in which we are activated by something. When we're activated by something, it can trigger what we call threat response behaviors. Um, and when we're in those threat response behaviors, it can have an impact on how we engage relationally. And, when we're engaging relationally from that threat response place, often the feedback that we get from the person we're engaging with is their own threat response behavior. And when that
Right.
happens, right, we then double down often on our own, like those dysregulated behaviors, and it just sort of becomes a cycle. And what we try to do through restorative therapy, that kind of practice or modality, is help people recognize when they're in a pain cycle, bring that awareness to it. I always say we cannot heal what we do not acknowledge, right? So when we have that awareness, there's opportunity for us to interrupt the pain cycle and shift into what's called a peace cycle, which is essentially the opposite of that. It's when we are regulated. It's when we are grounded in truth versus grounded in feelings. Not to say that feelings are important and valid, but they're not necessarily always telling us the truth, right? I always say
Right.
feelings are not facts, they're informative. But they're not facts. So that's a little bit about restorative therapy. And the founder of that therapeutic modality is Terry Hargrave, if anybody's interested in learning more.